Hi, thanks very much for joining me. I'm Dean and this is Woodwork Journey. Today we're doing this and I'm in dungarees. Oh! So thank you very much for joining us. So today we're going to be looking at the ForestMaster chainsaw mill. There might be a couple of videos about this, but we'll do just the one for today of just cutting down an oak log. I'm going to be using the Hyundai powered P1 chainsaw, and I've got safety equipment, I've got all sorts of bits and bobs. We're going to do this in an affordable way because this chainsaw is around about £100, and then the chainsaw mill is surprisingly affordable if you do want to come up with your own wood. So let's get into things and I'll show you as much as I can. So we're going to kick off just with a bit of safety info. Now, I'm not using the chainsaw freely, if you like, so I'm not wearing chaps or anything like that, but I have got my visor and hearing protection on the helmet there, and I have got some Kevlar gloves as well. I'm keeping my arms covered, my legs are covered and all that sort of nonsense, but the chainsaw will be held within this section, so it's not kind of going to be running around and likely to damage me because I'm not cutting from the floor. But before I show you how we get the chainsaw in here, let me give you a brief overview of the chainsaw mill. One more thing I should highlight is the fact that my wife is here as a second person, if you like, just for an extra security measure, and she's making sure that the camera's recording things. So no shaky cam from her. Okay, so this is the unit. Now you can see the orange section at the bottom. That is the general miter stand that I will show you in a little while, but that's general purpose and has a whole bunch of functionality. What we've got on the top is the actual chainsaw mill. Now these bars here are what the chainsaw runs along, so that helps give you the height and all that sort of stuff and how deep you're cutting. I'll show you how to set that in a moment, but there is a whole bunch of extras that you can add to the bottom of this, which I will tell you about towards the end. But let me just show you it in action because I think that's what we're all hoping to see. Okay, so what we've got here is the height adjuster. So this goes under this section right here, so we can lift that up, and then we have to try and lift it on both sides, and then we can make sure that we've got everything to the same height. So what I've got there is I've got this being supported by one of the cutouts on this piece of metal. I can then tighten that up. That falls out of there, but we know that that is the height that we want it to be. So now I can go around the other sides and make sure that they're all at the same height. The modular design of this means that you can move these things in and out, move them wherever you want. They can go up or down. They can basically, you can adjust it to any size wood that you want. And in this case, because it's not an overly long piece, I'm going to pop all my pieces like that. But these are the sections that you can change out with the additions that I'll show you at the end. But yeah, we've got a nice little space going on there between these two holders. So let's get the log in. Right, so that's this log in, nice and straight. Now it's time to get the chainsaw in the hand bit. Right, so before I do put it in the handly thing, what I am going to do though is just make sure that I've got my chain at the correct tension, because with this particular chainsaw, your tensioner is on the inside and here, and you can't get to it when you're in the unit. And you can see that we're just a little bit on the loose side. So I'll just get that a little bit tighter and then we can take it from there. Right, so the chainsaw goes into this section right here, and you might just be able to see these sort of clampy bits going on here. They're twisted metal and they clamp onto the bar of the chainsaw. Now, one of the things you'll also see going on here is one of the things that is slightly annoying. Now, these orange strips run at the bottom, at the top, right in there, and there is a little one that goes in the middle in there. Now, they fall out constantly, and I would definitely suggest you gluing them in. I've not done that on mine as yet, but they do help with making sure that things run smoothly. These are kind of like an anti-friction plastic or something. So yeah, but I have done something else with my saw as well, which will help that. But no, what we're going to do now is get the saw through here and bolt it down. Right, it's awkward to get the saw in by yourself, but it's not impossible. When you're doing up these nuts and bolts, you want to try and make them as even as possible, because if you don't, when you try and move the chain, it won't move smoothly because you'll find that one of these is pinching it. So do make sure that that's nice and clean and nice and able to move before you start worrying about putting it on the mill. This is quite a small bar, and so if you go too hard on those bolts that I just showed you, then what can happen is it can actually squeeze the bar together, and that will stop the chain from moving freely because it's sort of clamped on the inside of it. So just be careful you don't over tighten it. I'd like to see some different kind of locking system going on for this, but you know, it is what it is. Now I'm just going to lubricate these bars a little bit more. What I'm going to do is just use some of this anti-friction dry PTFE. Just makes life a little bit easier. Yes, you've got the anti-sticking stuff going on with the bits of plastic on the inside, but also just doing this makes sure that things are going to slide as nicely as possible, and it's also going to offer you a little protection against the elements. Now what's going on here is this is an L shape that goes underneath, so we've got this sandwiched around the outside. So even though I've got some movement in this bar, it's not going to fall off because we've got a C shape that goes around this square part here. But this does need to be adjusted to make sure that it hits exactly the right size, so you can get it on and off, but not so tight that it causes you problems. All right, and with all that organised, we're pretty much in the space where we can start cutting now. So what I've got is I've got the log nice and low to begin with. However, once we've got through the first couple of layers, I'll show you how we can lift the whole thing up nice and safely to enable us to get going. But before we go anywhere, obviously, we've got the safety, hat on, ear defenders. If you say anything, hold on, I can't hear you. Then we've got the gloves as well. Like I say, these do look like normal kind of leathery gloves, but they are Kevlar lined. I used to use these when I was riding the motorbike back in the day. Right, let's see if we can get this started, shall we? Choke out. Okay, now if the camera comes in, we can have a little look and see what we've done. And here we go. That is our first slice of log. Okay, so the first slice has been taken off the top. I've thrown that down there. Now what we've got to do is we've got to undo these two clamps holding these bad boys on, and we can now get this, and rather than being at that high one, we can now move down to the next one down, tighten them up, and make sure that all four are at the same height again. Now obviously the chainsaw came off before I did that, so you can see things. You don't have to do that, but just safety procedure seems like a good idea too. Right, let's get the chainsaw back on and do another slab. One of the things that ForestMaster do recommend is that you have a minimum of a 24-inch bar. Now, if you do have a 24-inch bar on your chainsaw, it means that you're not going to be susceptible to that pinching quite as much, but it also means you can go the full width of this, which is better than what I've got going on here. I've only got a 20-inch bar on my chainsaw, and so it means that I've got a maximum cutting depth of around about 11 inches or so. And so that's absolutely fine and dandy. So let's get into it and see where we're at. Get another slab cut. The problem with the chainsaws with the 24-inch bars is that they are horribly expensive. If you're a DIYer like me, it's not always a good idea or achievable to do it. Once again, let's come in and have a look. Now, we've got some 11-inch pieces in width there that will go through my planer. And also, we've got some nice slabs. They look like they're probably about 1.5 inches, maybe getting on for 2 inches. So by the time that we've planed them down, there'll still be plenty of usable wood going on there. Now, what if this is now too low? Okay, so you saw there that I was bending over as I am right now. It's no good for your back, and it's not good for safety either. So what we're going to do is we're just going to lift that up like so. We can then move in, pop that little thing down, and then that's one of the legs out. You can do the same on the other side. Now, obviously you can't do this if you've got a hellishly heavy log, but this one is very, very dry, and so it's very, very light. But otherwise, you'd get a friend to help you, or maybe an engine hoist or whatever. You can figure things out yourself, I'm sure. At this stage, you can see that we've got the serrated log holder at the bottom there. Now, if this log does get too light and you're worried about safety, or indeed if it's a weird shape or anything like that, we've got these two offerings as well. So these can go vertically down into that there, or they can go horizontally like this one, in the same way that we've got this bad boy. And what this means is, because you've got the two holes, is you can actually screw that into the log if needs be, if you want some extra safety to make sure it stays extra stable. Right, we're at a stage now where the chain may hit against the supports. However, that is something we can change. Right here, we've got a little height adapter, so we can undo that, and then we can just drop this down just a touch, which means that we can make sure that the chain is nice and safe. And we've got the same on the other side. Right, so that's it with my cheap little P1 chainsaw. It's 62cc, so that does help. But as you saw, I wasn't pushing it hard. I was letting the chain do the work and just kind of edging it and letting it do its thing. And that has worked out pretty well. Now, these are all of the bits of wood we just got out of that one piece. It was about 11 inches in diameter, thereabouts, and it's just over 31 inches long. Now, that being said, the thicker slices are about 1.75 inches, and that last thinner one is about 1 inch. What I'm going to do, if this was brand new green wood, I certainly wouldn't do it, but I know it's been drying for a long time. I'm going to pop this thinner one through the thickness so you can see what can be achieved, and then yeah, it'll let us know whether we've done something good today or whether this is something that you don't want to be checking out. But before I do, let's just have a little look at some of the grain, like on this bad boy right here. We know that it's not cut in a professional standard, but just adding some water on the top of it, and we've got some nice figuring going on. You can see that we've got some nice, this is almost like a walnut going through the middle of here, which I think is lovely, but this is the darker oak, and then we've got the lighter colour sapwood on the outside. So I think these, especially once they're nice and dry of sap, they're going to be really nice boards to use. All right, what I'm doing first is I'm just going to get off the bark, because I don't want that spitting around anywhere and causing problems. And then what we need to do is just to make sure that the tree hasn't grown with any nuts and bolts and things in it. That's fine. That yellow light is picking up the Triton, I think. Found one. We have got, because when I lowered them at the end, when I cut this last piece, I didn't lower it evenly. So I've got, this is about 1.75 inches, and this end is about 1 inch. So we're going to have to work our way down, but we'll get there in the end. And that is now a nice oak board. It's about 1 inch thick, maybe just under. Let's have a look. No, it is bang on 1 inch thick, that. So that was previously a log like an hour ago. And now, a little bit of drying or a little bit of chilling in the settling in the shop. I'll sticker it, as well as I'll sticker the other ones as well. And then, yeah, that didn't exist a little while ago other than in tree form, and so now it's going to be a really nice, useful bit of oak that I think is going to look lovely. I'll just quickly throw some water on it so you can see this grain. Now I've polished it up a little bit with the thicknesser. Okay, so now I'm just going to throw some water on this just so we can see the oakiness of the whole thing. And that just brings out brings out the grain a little bit so we can see the kind of thing that it will look like when it's all sorted out, you know, when it's got a finish on it. And I know what you're going to think, that Dean, you want this wood to be dry. I want it to be dry of sap and the stuff in the tree. This water will dry off nice and quickly. But yeah, so there we go. That is home milled usable wood thanks to the ForestMaster chainsaw mill. And I will show you more about that in another video and what else it can do. ForestMaster did send it to me free for the purposes of review, but no money has exchanged hands. I've had plenty of time to get used to it, and I should have done this video ages ago, but I didn't because I wanted to make sure I had the right information for you guys, as well as the weather's been rubbish. But anyway, they sent it to me. I'm not under any obligation to say nice things. I'll leave a link down below so you can check one out yourself. Thanks very much for watching, and I'll see you very, very soon. Bye-bye.